today I'm going to be talking about IFAKs or trauma kits, whatever you want to call them. There's a lot of different ways you can set these things up, and there's a lot of different types of pouches out there depending on what kind of gear you got. I'm going to be going over the 3 different ones that I've used and kind of, I guess, the pros and cons of each of these type of systems. So the first one we'll be going over is just your standard pouch. It has the MOLLE on the back. You can see here. You can attach this to a backpack, plate carrier. You could attach it to a belt, I guess, if you wanted to. You'd have to get a little creative with how you attach it, but you could. A negative about attaching it with the belt, and I personally wouldn't attach something this size, is it's going to get in the way of your plate carrier whenever you try to sit down, whenever you try to lean over, squat, whatever you're doing, it's just going to get in the way. So I generally try not to put really large stuff on my belt. Another negative thing about something this size is if you put on your plate carrier, you're limited on where you can put it. So you could put it on the back of your plate carrier and it probably wouldn't get in the way of anything. But if you have a backpack like I do on your plate carrier, you're going to be limited on space. Now you could put it up top, somewhere up here if you wanted to, because there's MOLLE. But if I were to put this on, I would put it like I did this one over here, kind of as close to the back as you can to where it's out of the way of your pistol if you're wearing a belt. So you can see over here, there's a pistol or a holster on the side of my belt over there, and if this was too far forward, it would get in the way of my draw. So the last thing you want to be doing is trying to draw, and then you hit this thing and it gets in your way, and then you have to draw around the IFAK. That's not natural, it's not fast, it's not advised. So make sure that your gear doesn't interfere with itself. The negative about putting it on the left side, if you're right-handed and you put it on the left side, now you're interfering. If you, like me, have rifle mags, so you can see I got rifle mags sticking out over there. If I put anything on my left side of my plate carrier, now it's in the way of my rifle mag. So whenever I try to reload, it would get in the way. So see if stuff gets in the way of everything else. If it doesn't, great. Go to the range and you'll figure out pretty quick what does and what doesn't work, or what gets in the way and what works together, what doesn't. So the nice thing about these things though is they're really large. You can fit pretty much everything, including the kitchen sink, in this thing. Versus these other IFAKs are a little bit smaller and you can't quite get everything you want in it. So if you are really worried and you really want to have a bunch of medical stuff, then this is probably the way to go. One of the things though, if you're going to use something this size, especially one that's MOLLE like this, and you can't detach it from your plate carrier without detaching the MOLLE, which basically means it's stuck to your plate carrier, is you want to make sure you utilize the elastic straps on the inside and tuck everything into this as best you can. Because last thing you want to do is unzip this and everything just dumps out on the ground. So now in theory, an IFAK should be used by someone else on you. So your IFAK that's on your plate carrier is for you, but it's for somebody else to use on you. So that's a general idea, but if you're doing stuff and you're out by yourself, you still want to be able to access your IFAK in case you need it for yourself. So that aside, let's talk about the next one. The next one I'm going to talk about a little bit is this one right here, which is a Trex-Arms medical pouch, and they have it on their site. It's, I think, somewhere around $45 when you can find it in stock. That other Condor one I showed you a second ago, I think it was around 20 bucks, somewhere in that range for $25. This one is specifically designed to be mounted to a kind of war belt or a duty belt, whatever you want to call it. It has an attachment point on the back, which I'll try to show you here. So on the back, if you can see that, it's got belt loops. Now the ones on the inside are really wide, so for a larger belt, and then the ones on either side, on either end, are for a 2-inch belt. I just have it looped through all of them because why not? Make it more secure. But that just gives you more options depending on what kind of belt you have. I really like this. There's a few other good ones out there. Blue Force Gear makes a smaller one than this, so it's really kind of just the bare essentials. AR500 makes a pretty decent one too. It's kind of a similar idea to this, except I think it pulls out the bottom instead of out the top. But this one is pretty nice, and I like it quite a bit. And if you order this, I'll go ahead and say this now. Go ahead and get this little Velcro strap to go with it, or strip, and because it'll hold things like batteries, flashlights, pins, whatever you want on there. And you could also put one of these North American Rescue decompression needles, and I'll talk about that here in a second. But that could also fit through here if you wanted to. Now, granted, I'd be a little worried it would fall out, but that's just kind of a side note. And the reason I say that is because Trex-Arms does free shipping on $50 and over. So this med pouch is like 45 bucks. So if you add this is like a $5, $6 item, something like that, it gives you free shipping, and shipping would have cost more than this would have. So you might as well. But it's nice because you can put Sharpies on here, which I use all the time at the range. Literally every time I go to the range, I'm using it constantly. Has a little flashlight on there just for stuff if you need. Plus, you want to be able to write on your time strip on the tourniquet if you need it. So on the bottom here, it has 2 elastic bands, and you can fit a tourniquet through there. You could fit something else if you wanted to, I guess, but I use the tourniquet. And some of you may be thinking, oh, this is mounted wrong, and you are right. It is mounted wrong, this little strip is. So technically, it should be mounted like that and Velcroed out of the way. The reason I don't do that, and this would be the same if you have a little dangler on the front side of your plate carrier that kind of goes underneath the cummerbund straps and kind of dangles in front of your crotch. If you use one of those and put a tourniquet on there and it's exposed like this, you are going to get dirt and crud all in this Velcro, and this Velcro is now useless. So that's just something to take note of. If you put it in a place like I have on the very back of my belt, where you're gonna be either sitting in mud, dirt, whatever, and you don't want this getting clogged up, I go ahead and just cover it up. But if you don't have to cover this up for that reason, don't, because that's one more thing you're gonna have to try to remove before you can apply this tourniquet. So that's just something to take consideration. Another side note, you might be thinking, oh, well, I can wrap my tourniquet in plastic or keep it in the original packing. Don't do that either. Again, that's one more thing you have to take apart, and you may not have use of both hands. You may be trying to rip at this with your teeth. So you want to make sure that your tourniquets are, one, out of the wrapper, two, are staged properly. So let me move the camera just a little bit. So this one up here is pretty much staged properly. You could argue over how far this little flap needs to be curved over, but this one right here, you can see the little time strip is over here properly, and that's so you can easily take the windlass and turn it to where it tightens. So just note, do it that way when in doubt, this way if you have to. So that's just kind of a little side note. I like this. Again, it's enough out of the way to where I don't generally, like if I'm sitting in a car or vehicle or something, it doesn't really get in the way. It's high enough out of the way. But it's also accessible. Now, one thing also is you want to be able to put this somewhere where you can access the tourniquet with both hands. I have long Gumby arms, so I can reach this with either arm, but it only comes out this direction. It won't come out the other way because obviously this won't fit through the loops. So just something to take note. Now, this pouch itself is nice because they have really long little 550 cord pulls. So this is hard to do behind the camera. Sorry. So you pull down on either side, and obviously this will open. Nice thing about this, everything just pulls out. So in here you have two little, what look kind of like miniature magazine pouches. And in here I have a North American Rescue. It's a compression bandage. They call it something else. I don't remember exactly what it's called. But basically it's a compression bandage, kind of like the Israeli bandage. But this one doesn't have the little plastic tab in there that applies more pressure directly to the wound. So, but again, you had to get something small enough to fit inside here, which is a negative about this pouch. It's not as big as another pouch would be. But again, it's designed to be on your belt. So the other things I have in here that I would suggest is a package of compressed gauze. Now, there's a bunch of different companies that make this, but instead of having some sort of big giant bulky thing like this, which this is a roll of gauze, it's a little bit different, or one of these big giant things, again, big roll of gauze that takes up a lot of space, or even something like this, which again takes up a lot of space. The compressed gauze, while the plastic itself is a little obnoxious to try to fold up and fit in here, it takes up less room than all that other stuff would. Now, that said, there's still enough room for in here. I have a little tiny field dressing that's basically just the same thing as this, but a lot cheaper, and it's cheaper gauze. I also have one of those little field dressings in the backpack here, if you can see that. And then there's that field dressing thing if you want to see it. I also have a small pair of gloves in here as well. So that's pretty much the basics of what this is, the pull out. So that's nice, so you don't have to try to take it off of your belt. You can just pull it out and you have it. Now inside here, there's just enough room for a chest seal. This is the North American Rescue one you can see right there. This is their full size, and this is the vented one. They also make a compact version that's probably like an inch in all directions smaller maybe. So you wouldn't have to fold it up like you would this one if you use that one. I actually use the compact version for my, we wear 511 cargo pants or tactical pants, whatever you want to call them, but they have cargo pockets for work. And I actually use the compressed version to put in my cargo pocket to use. And I kind of have that as a IFAK that's a cargo pocket. But anyways, so one of these will fit in here. The size technically says this is too big for this to fit in here, but if you fold it just right, it'll fit in there just fine. So that's everything in theory you would need for most situations when it comes to something that's a medical problem, especially like gunshot wounds or whatever. There's other things, again, that I would like to have in here, but there's not room for. So, but again, this is not my main IFAK. This is just another additional thing I have on my belt, just in case that I can actually access myself. And again, you can never have too many tourniquets. So you can have a tourniquet here, have a tourniquet in your regular IFAK, have a tourniquet on your backpack like this. No such thing as too many tourniquets. The next one I want to go over, and again, if you have any questions about this specifically, just let me know. I absolutely love this Trex-Arms med pouch. It's wonderful. The last thing I have right here, and I'll show you this. This is made by Condor as well. The quality could be better on it, but again, it's Condor. It works. It's not the best thing on the planet. And like I always say, if you can afford something better, then why not? Go ahead and buy it. But this is for people who are more on a budget. So this one, as you can see, rips away fairly easily from itself. So there's this little buckle, a little Velcro flap, and you take it off. And now you have your IFAK, but unlike this larger one, well, one, this is larger, there's more space, but this one is specifically attached to your plate carrier. You can't take it off, at least not easily. This one is designed where you can rip it off, and then you have your little IFAK right here where you can put it in front of you. You can get to everything way easier. So if you're going to put some sort of IFAK on your plate carrier directly, I would suggest this, especially if you're concerned about all of your gear from your belt getting in the way. Now, if you're not running a belt like this, then you can put your IFAK pretty much wherever you want. It's not a big deal. The negative about this one, again, if I didn't say, is made by Condor. It's a rip-away model. If you put it on, make sure that this handle, you can reach it from either side. So your left hand should be able to reach it and your right hand should be able to reach it. And for me, I found it a lot easier to rip it forward in order to get it off, so you pull towards the front. If you mount it the other way, it's going to be really awkward pulling it backwards away towards your back. So I don't know, maybe you're weird or I'm weird, and but that's just what works best for me. So on the inside of here, I have pretty much the same thing I have in everything else. So 2 things of compressed gauze, because again, this is bigger than that, so I can fit more in it. So 2 compressed gauze for wound packing or whatever you need. This one will fit in full-size Israeli bandages. This is a 6-inch one. They also make 4-inch versions, I believe. But I like the Israeli bandages better than the North American Rescue ones because they have that little piece of plastic that allows you to apply pressure directly on the bandage. So it applies pressure itself once it's set up. So that's nice. Don't take these out of package. Some people say you can, but I mean, sure, I guess you could, but this package protects that, and it also keeps it sterile. Plus, taking it out of there isn't going to make it really that much smaller. I put tape in there because why not? This thing is all kinds of squished, but I'd rather have tape than not. But one thing you can do, especially, and I'll show you kind of here, with this kind of rolled gauze, is you can wrap it around, say if my finger right here needs, so once you wrap it around here, you can cut it, like the last strip that you have, you can cut it this way into 2 different strips, and then you can wrap it back around itself and then tie a knot and tie it on itself. So you don't really need tape if you have gauze and you have a pair of scissors. So this is kind of something to take note. Next kind of on here I have, which you can see, is quick clot. Some people hate quick clot because there are some, in theory, long-term medical conditions by using it, and that's somewhat true, less so now than it used to be whenever it first came out, but just read up on that. I'm not going to talk much about it, but quick clot, because even if there is some sort of medical problem that this causes down the road, it's better than dying now. So anyways, a little side rant. I have a chest seal in here, as you can see. I also have a roll of gauze, and I also have one of these fresh surgical pads. It's large gauze. I have gloves in there, and then I have a pair of medical shears. Make sure your medical shears work. Cut through something that's relatively tough just to make sure it works, because there's a lot of cheap ones out there that I've seen that just kind of flex and bend out like a normal pair of scissors, and they don't actually cut through things. So make sure you buy some good medical shears, because if someone's injured, you need to be able to cut through whatever they're wearing in order to get to it. I guess that pretty much covers everything. The positives, I guess, about this is, one, you can reach it in theory from either hand depending on where you put it, and you can rip it away from your body to where you have it in front of you. You don't have to try to constantly reach behind you to pull stuff out of your IFAK if you are bleeding out all over the place. That's not ideal. So, but I would highly suggest, especially if you wear a belt and you wear a plate carrier, buy one of each. There's probably other companies that make stuff similar to this, but I've had really good luck with Condor over the years. The quality is good enough. With everything I buy, I try to be as cheap as possible. If you guys have any questions about any of this, let me know. Oh, one other thing, actually 2 other things I want to cover. So something else I keep, but I don't keep in my IFAK, and if you have room in your IFAK, go for it. I actually keep this in this back panel on my backpack. So one is a nasal airway. So this will prevent your airway from getting blocked or clogged if someone's has, I don't know, if they're bleeding, they got a bunch of stuff in their throat, or their throat's trying to swell up, whatever. This will enable them, it'll kind of protect their airway. So one, learn how to use these things. Two, I kind of keep it in this bag because it comes with a lubricant, and it's going to be a lot more comfortable using it with lube. The other thing I would suggest having is a decompression needle. This one's made by North American Rescue. I don't think you can buy these on Amazon, but you can buy them on eBay. They come in 2 different sizes. I want to say one is a 10 gauge and one is a 14 gauge, I think. And basically one's just larger than the other. But this is used to, if your chest cavity is filling up with air, that will prevent your lungs from being able to expand, which basically makes it where you can't breathe. So again, a lot of this stuff may be, I don't know, above your pay grade, something you don't know how to use, but there's a lot of good YouTube videos out there that'll show you kind of the general idea of how to do this. And if you're on the verge of dying, trying this, even if you don't know how, but you have a decent idea, trying it is better than not. And another kind of side note is people tend to be afraid to carry stuff that they don't know how to use, but also there are people out there that you might be with that know how to use this stuff. So you might happen to have someone in your group that does know how to use this, or someone nearby that knows how to use this, or whatever. So it's never a bad idea to have too much gear because someone else may be able to use that equipment. But again, I highly suggest going out and getting medical training if you don't have any. The other thing I wanted to mention is properly maintaining your stuff. So like this one right here, you can see this was a roll of gauze. I don't use this in anything, but this is kind of to show you what can happen. So this one, as you can see, is flat. All the air is out of there. So this thing is no longer sterile. Now that's not a huge issue when it comes, if you're just using this to wrap around the wound and kind of hold gauze in place. But just take a look at your stuff every now and then and make sure it's in good condition and it's not unraveled. This one, you can see the gauze on the inside. You may not be able to tell, but it's kind of rough and messed up. So it's not exactly in the best shape. Versus this one, you can see is nice and clean, and you can see it's still basically bubbled. So this one's still sterile. But take care of your stuff. Whenever your tourniquets wear out, if the Velcro wears out or you get a whole bunch of stuff on there, say like you wear it every day like I do on your duty belt, and it's constantly rubbing up against stuff, whether it's the car seat or whatever, and it starts slowly coming apart, eventually you want to replace it because it is life-saving equipment. The other last little side note, it's kind of something I learned for one of my friends who's an EMT, is you never know when someone's going to have an allergic reaction to something, so having Benadryl of some kind on you is useful. Now, if you have an EpiPen, fantastic, use that bad boy. But if you don't have access to an EpiPen, or the person, say if someone you know has allergies and doesn't have an EpiPen, carry Benadryl, especially this kind right here, which is like the powdered tablet. So if you pull one of these little pills apart, and in theory it's frowned upon, but it will work, is you can dump the medicine from inside the tablet underneath their tongue, and it'll start working a lot faster. So if their throat's swelling shut from whatever, you can put this under their tongue and it will help prevent their throat from swelling up. So that's just kind of a side note. I thought that was really useful information. I never knew that. So thought that was kind of cool. Kind of pass that along. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving you medical advice, but it's something that I found useful. So just thought I'd pass that along. If y'all have any questions, comments, concerns, video ideas, post them down below. If you guys have a question about anything that I've showed you or anything I've said, feel free to ask. I'll be happy to answer any questions y'all have. But I hope you all have a great day. All right, see you later.